Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's event, Debt and Money Management. This is our second webinar in the Wealth Building series. So for those of you who missed the first class on home buying, we do have it recorded if you're interested. So just send me a note in the chat and I can definitely make sure that you have that recording because it's awesome. So I just want to start off by introducing myself. My name is Maya Graham. I'm the chair of the UNC Charlotte Black Alumni Chapter's Regional Committee and a 2013 graduate of UNC Charlotte. And I have to start off by saying that we are just super excited that you all have decided to spend your evening with us and getting some gems. So just grab your pen and paper, listen intently, because we have some really important information to share. So before we get started, just want to share some housekeeping. So at the top of your Zoom, and I think at least by now, most folks kind of know how to operate Zoom, but you will see the view icon in the top right corner. And so we encourage you to put your view in speaker view. So if you click that icon on the top right corner, you can hit speaker view, and that's going to allow you to focus better on who is speaking at the time. So you should see my big face pop up. There is a reaction icon at the bottom of your screen. So if there's anything that you really enjoy hearing, please feel free to kind of tap a reaction so that we can see what really resonates with you all. But of course, throughout the course of the night tonight, we just encourage you to put your questions in the chat. So before we dive in, I wanted to share a little bit about the regional committee and the purpose of tonight's event. We started this committee last year in an effort to build community with 49ers living outside of the Charlotte area in major cities like Washington, D.C., Atlanta, New York, and of course, the North Carolina Triad and Triangle regions. Post-pandemic, please be on the lookout for opportunities to connect in person. And if you live in one of those areas and you have ideas, we highly encourage you all to reach out and to connect with us because we would love to connect with you. So the purpose of tonight's event is pretty self-explanatory in all honesty, but I wanted to share a few facts and figures that enhance the importance of managing your money as a means of building wealth. So according to education.org, Black and African American college graduates owe an average of $25,000 more in student loan debt than white college graduates. And 4 years after graduation, 48% of Black students owe an average of 12.5% more than what they originally borrowed. And so tonight is really one of the first steps that you can take in really helping to close that wealth gap. And I see that we have a wide range of folks that are here tonight. So we're not just going to focus on student loan debt. We're going to talk about managing your money across the board. And we also received a lot of questions related to retirement as well. So we'll talk about that too. Alrighty, so before we get started, I just want to say a quick thank you to UNC Charlotte Alumni Affairs staff, the Black Alumni Chapter, the Regional Committee. We have Paige, AK, Raven, Steve, and of course, our awesome keynote speaker for tonight, Frenchie Brown, who I will introduce in just a moment. Also just wanted to give a huge shout out to SAA. We have Kayla Williams, who's going to help moderate tonight's event, and Josh, who has been instrumental in putting this event together, as well as Kelsey, who is the president of SAA. Alrighty, so without further ado, I'm going to share a little bit about our keynote speaker for tonight. So Frenchie Brown Wilson is a business engagement manager in consumer AML. She oversees AML laws, rules, and regulations for Bank of America merchant services and payment strategies. And her diligence ensures that Bank of America minimizes and/or eliminates reputational, compliance, and operational risk related to AML. She has been a senior project and program manager managing multi-million-dollar projects in small business. Brown has also served as a small business customer service phone associate, small business direct sales, training coordinator, among many other things at Bank of America. Her passion for winning, delivering strong results, fostering teamwork, and doing the right thing are evident in her leadership style and results in making her a top performer. Frenchie received the Bank of America UNC Charlotte Service Award and was an Enterprise Diversity and Inclusion nominee, and she receives regular recognitions from her peers and her partners. Of course, Ms. Brown is an alumna of UNC Charlotte. She graduated with a BS in criminal justice and a minor in English in 1991. Shout out to the class of 91. And she is a Winston-Salem native, so shout out to the 336. She moved to Charlotte in 1987, where she currently resides with her husband, Ryan. Frenchie continues to be an advocate for community outreach, and she currently serves as a mentor and motivational speaker at churches, social groups, and campus outreach. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up Frenchie Brown to go ahead and kick us off with the presentation.
Thank you so much for that. I had to listen to say, is that really me that you're talking about? But I guess it is. So with that, thank you all so much for taking time out of your evening to be here with us. This is going to be interactive. This is not going to be the Frenchie show. So I do encourage you to ask your questions in the chat. Ask throughout the presentation. You do not have to wait until the end. And as you just heard Maya say, this is not just going to be about debt and how to pay off debt. We're going to cover end to end, from getting set up with a checking account. How do you use your accounts? Where is your money going? How are you preparing for retirement? Or if you want to start your own business. So some of you sitting out there right now at 6:39 p.m., your money is acting funny and your change is acting strange. And so because you're going through that, we're going to talk some real talk about money. And what I want you to think about is, how do I master the ownership needed to enjoy my financial gifts? So as you think about this, some of you may remember this movie, or it was a show that used to come on talking about, are you smarter than a fifth grader? So what I want you to do is to use the chat, and I'm going to ask my co-host to help me with this. For these questions, credit cards are considered cash for everyone or used only when needed? What do you think the answer is? Credit cards are considered cash for everyone or used only when needed? What are we getting out there in the chat? See the numbers going up. What are some of the answers y'all are seeing?
A lot of people are saying use only when needed.
Very good, very good. Credit cards are not cash. We don't want for you all to fall into that trap thinking that it is cash, even though you may see that you can do a cash advance. They are not cash. They are not for everyone. Everyone is not responsible. I will raise my hand. When I was in college, I had several credit cards. I graduated in 1991. At that time, we could literally go to the RDH, or we could go to another cafeteria. There were different companies set up in the vestibule selling us credit cards. So we had a lot of credit cards, and therefore we had a lot of debt coming out of college. That is no longer allowed. So that's why you do not have that on campus. For those of us that still write checks, I know some of you don't know what a check is, but if you still have checks, then that means you still have money in your account. Is that true or false? So if I have checks, see, I still write a check. Does that mean you have money in your account? What are we seeing out there?
A lot of people are saying false. No.
False. Exactly. Exactly. Just because you have checks does not mean you have money in your account. You should only purchase what you need versus what you want. I'm going to go on and respond to that. That is not true. You should be able to reward yourself based on how you have spent your money, based on you being a good steward of the money you've received. Zelle and Cash App allow you to send money you don't have in your account. Not true. You can only send what you have. If you don't have it, you can't send it. How you handle your money today may affect your future. I don't want you to think that it always will. Is money truly the root of all evil? Yes or no? Money is the root of all evil. What are people saying? It is or it's not?
A lot of people are saying no.
It is
money.
The love of money is the root of all evil. Exactly. Be very careful. The love of money. And then this last one here. I can pay my bills late as long as I eventually pay them. Not true. Do not fall into that trap just because you end up paying them. You cannot pay them late. So let's talk a little bit about some money manners. And some of this is going to resonate. I wanted to put some quotes in here, and some of them come from scripture. Train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is a servant to the lender. That's from Proverbs 22, 6-7. So what I want us to think about is, what do you know about checking accounts, saving for your future and retirement, credit cards, debit cards, budgeting, paying bills, credit reports? All of this we're going to talk about because this really helps you determine where you are financially today, where you were then, and where you're going to go in the future. So for those of you that are not familiar with a checking account or a checkbook, as I showed you here on the screen, I do have a picture here for you. I'm going to put the words on the page here, but I'm not going to read this to you. I want for you to just take it in based upon how you want to receive this information. Checking account can be set up for any age. Those of you who have children, you should start this as soon as you can. And you can start with different types of checking account or a savings account, which allows you to put money in there, a minimal of $25. Or there are some banks or credit unions that will allow you to open an account without any money, but you have to make a deposit within a certain amount of time. The reason that is important for you to have this fund available is because this is where you're going to be able to start tracking your progress. This is where I want for you to write everything down. I still keep a ledger. I know where every penny is that I spend. And I want for you to get in the habit of writing things down. I know that so many of us are on our phones constantly tapping, tapping, tapping. If this is where you need to write your information, write it there. But I need for you to write it down and make sure you keep up with the balance. I need you to know what you're getting into when you set up your checking or savings account, because some of them will charge you a monthly maintenance fee unless you maintain a certain balance. If you are trying to build wealth and start understanding financially where you are, then you need to understand, if I don't have X amount of money in my account, I am going to be charged a monthly maintenance fee. And realistically, none of us should be in a position that we're okay with giving X amount of money to a bank because we haven't maintained a balance or met the amount of transactions that they've asked us to do. I want you to also know that when you use your Zelle or Cash App or any other app, this is a good way for you to manage your money because you only can send money that you have access to. But the reality is, if you don't have the money, if you have a bill that is coming due, make sure that you are not overspending, because when you find yourself in that predicament, then you're going to start getting charged. And that is where you're going to have that overdraft fee. And that again is a fee that we cannot find ourselves having to pay because we need to hold on to as much of our money as we can. When it comes to change, I want for us to change our mindset about change. Change makes dollars. Put your change in a jar somewhere. Keep it there. I have a belief system when it comes to saving. Pay your tithes, pay yourself, and pay your bills. And for those of you that may not be into tithing, then just find a way that you're always paying yourself, and then you're able to pay your bills. I also want you to understand that you should be paying your bills before they are due. You should not wait until the due date. And I know we have on the phone, we have some people that are of my age. There are some of you that are still in college. There are some of you that are preparing to send your children to college. It is going to be very important that you manage your money well, because when it comes time for you to take out a loan, when it comes time for you to fill out your FAFSA application because you need funding, even when it comes time for you to look at scholarships and grants, which you don't have to pay back, there are some companies that want to see how you manage your credit, and they want to make sure that the funding, or that you haven't left a bank with a debt because you haven't managed your money. So when it comes to savings, be sure that you're paying yourself, you're paying your bills on time, because when you do that, it has a downstream impact on what happens on your credit bureau, which we'll talk about shortly.
Somebody just had a question in the chat, and it says, what qualifies as paying yourself?
Paying yourself, and that's a very good question. So let's say that you bring home $100 a week. Out of that $100 a week, if you are one who pays a tithe, then you would pay your 10% of your tithe, $10. Then you may want to say, I want to pay myself $10 every pay period. $15 every pay period, $20 every pay period. For those of you that like Starbucks, for those of you that like Krispy Kreme donuts, if you sat there and looked at how much money you are spending at a Krispy Kreme or a Starbucks, that's money that could go to savings. So when it comes to paying yourself, you determine what your goal is, what your budget is, and then you say, this is how much money I am going to pay myself. And what I want you to remember is when you deposit into that savings account, don't remember, meaning don't come back and get that money. Put it in there, let it stay, let it accrue interest, because now you are paying yourself so that you have money for that rainy day that we heard of when we were little children. Only withdraw money for emergencies. We should establish an emergency fund. Let me be clear. Emergency is not getting your nails done, buying that new car, getting a new pocketbook, having all that smell good. COVID has taught us that we can purge. There are things we do not need that we thought we needed. And so when it comes to that true emergency, your car broke down. True emergency, someone got sick and you got to pay a hospital bill. True emergencies is when you should go and withdraw money from your savings. And I also encourage you to learn about investments. There are so many of us that don't understand how to invest. And then when we do learn it, we may not do it wisely. So I do encourage you to seek out financial advisors or family members that are investing now that you trust to really figure out how you can make your money grow through investments.
We have a couple questions in the chat. Somebody asked, with the change shortage currently happening, does holding on to your change in your change jar still make sense? And then
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kayla.
Somebody else asked, is it beneficial to have more than one savings account?
I'm going to answer the first one because I am an anti-money laundering. And one of the things that we talk about is, where is this money coming from? Where is this cash coming from? I don't know if you all noticed, but you can no longer put cash in someone's checking account if you go to the bank. You have to put a check because we cannot track cash. When it comes to change, that's a two-edged sword. Things are going to change. There has been a shortage of change. My husband and I went to a store about a month or so ago, and I gave them actual money down to the penny. And we laughed because I said, it's been a long time since you've touched a penny and a nickel. And they said, it has been. So I would say to you, it is good to still put your money in savings. Use cash when you can, because that helps to stimulate the economy. But if you feel that you don't want to, then you can put it in other type of investments. You can do something other than holding on to your savings, but hold on to this as long as you can. Take it to a credit union. I believe grocery stores still allow you to transition change into dollars, but this is to help stimulate the economy. For your second question, Kayla, absolutely, you should have more than one savings account. And I recommend that you put your savings account in different banks if you can. We purposely have one account in a credit union that is way across town. My aunt works there. Whenever we go and show our face, she's like, what you doing here? So we know we can't go in there to get money because she wants to know why you here. There is nothing in this bank for you, because if you put your money over here, it's because you wanted to accrue interest. You shouldn't be over here to do a withdrawal. So I encourage you, set up multiple accounts, put them in different places. And as you do so, also to get yourself disciplined, don't get a debit card, because that allows you access. If you really want to save, put your money somewhere where you don't have access so it can accrue interest for you. Kayla, did that answer the questions?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So the question that Kayla asked, how much should I save? What do you mean by pay myself? This is what I mean. More money, more money. I am so dating myself. This came from an old movie. But monthly contribution, start small, $10, $20, $30, $50. And what I wanted you to see here is that after a year, if you don't touch that, you have now accumulated $120. 5 years, $600. And if you do 50, look at how that money grows. But here is what I really want you to understand. This does not include the interest that you will earn from the bank. Keep in mind, interest rates fluctuate, just like with the housing. They fluctuate. They may be 1%, 2%, 3%, but this is what I want you to walk away with. It is more than you put in there. Any amount that you get that is interest, that is above what you have already put in your own savings account. I've never been poor, only broke. Being poor is a frame of mind. Being broke is only a temporary position, temporary, but it's going to be based upon how long you continue to have poor and bad behaviors. So let's talk about budgeting. How many of you budget? How many of you have a budget? And how many of you stuck to that budget? Use the chat just to say, I do, I don't. Do we have a lot of people that say they do have a budget, Kayla?
Some people are saying they do, but it's not consistent.
Right. That's what I wanted to get to. So when it comes to a budget, there are a few things I want you all to think about. Budgeting is not hard. Budgeting is hard when you haven't established a discipline. From what I understand, it takes 30 days to establish a discipline or a habit. So when it comes to you budgeting, you've got to be deliberate and make a decision about that budget. And when you make a decision that you want to start budgeting, stick to it. COVID, two-edged sword. COVID has hurt and COVID has helped. There are so many people that prior to COVID did not have a savings account, were not purging, were not budgeting. And because you're now working from home, you don't have to pay parking. You don't have to go take your clothes to the cleaners. For those of you that are in college, you may not have had to spend as much money with your food plan. You may not have had to go and keep getting dolled up because nobody sees you. You sitting at home on a Zoom and you get dolled up just for these type of meetings. There is money and cost saves there. When it comes to budgeting, be realistic about what you need versus what you want. For those of you that have children, require your children to earn an allowance. Start them early with understanding there is no such thing as entitlement. Require them to earn an allowance. And when I say earn an allowance, making your bed, cleaning your room, that comes with the territory living in my house. That doesn't give you an allowance. It's the above and beyond, but allow them to earn and start talking about money. Don't talk about money when you don't have it. Don't talk about money when there's a shortage. Talk about money early so the children can understand the importance of it. For budgeting, set up more than one budget, just like set up more than one savings account. Some companies and some banks allow you to set up accounts for school, travel, entertainment. Some people set up Christmas accounts. So again, when it comes to budgeting, make sure that you know where your money is. Dave Ramsey talks about the envelope system. Once you put your money in an envelope and you run out of that envelope, that's it. You don't get to spend anymore. You don't get to borrow from Peter to pay Paul. So be disciplined about that. And if you get off course, get back on track, but please don't give up. And the one thing that I want everybody to walk away from is don't try to keep up with the Jones, the Browns, and the Adams. Stay in your lane, know what you make, manage your money, and do the best you can without trying to keep up with other people. So you're probably saying, what was I thinking? So let's talk about credit card and credit bureaus. This is going to be real important. Don't pay your credit cards late. I told you what happened when I was in college. I had every credit card there was. And let me tell you how smart I was. I was in college getting an education. But when I got my credit cards, I used them to the max. And then when the credit card company started calling me, I told them I needed a new credit card because I'd already used the one they gave me. And I know they wanted to say, fool, if you don't send us our money and pay us back, something's going to be going on. So please do not fall into the credit card trap. Don't pay your credit cards late. Don't do cash advances. Don't overextend yourself with high balances. Don't just pay the minimum unless this is how you are going to pay off your debt. So let me spend a moment there. There are various ways to start paying off debt. You can do a snowball effect or you can do a high interest rate effect. And what I mean by that is when you get an opportunity to sit down and write down all of your debt. You can say, okay, on this credit card, I owe 300, this one 500, this one 700, this one 1,000. Focus on paying off that smallest balance first. Once that one is paid off, then take the money that you would have been paying on that one and start paying on the next one. This is called a snowball effect. You're now paying off. I'm taking that same amount of money that I was paying on that one that is paid off. I now pay it towards the next one. Continue to do this until all debt is paid. But here's the kicker. Don't go back and use that credit card that you've paid off. Why? Because now you're accumulating new debt. So the snowball effect, pay off your smallest balances first. Victory, done it, celebrate, then move on to the next one. Or you can do the high interest rate method, which is write down all your debt, write down the highest interest rate on each. And if you have a card that is a 30% interest rate, then a 20%, then a 15%, pay off your highest interest rate first. Once you do that, make sure you're paying at least the minimum or a little bit more on each other. So on the other cards, you can start paying that down. And then once you've paid off that high interest rate, take the money you were using to pay that down and start paying on the next one. And the discipline will be when you get bonuses, when you get back any money from your student loans and you don't need all of it to pay for schooling, put that to the side so you don't have to borrow as much the next time. And if you want to start paying back on your student loans, you can do that. If you have money that you get because you have been given a merit increase, take that money and pay. When you get tax refunds, don't focus on buying a new car, focus on paying off your debt. Again, it takes discipline. Using more than 70% of your available credit is a trap. Know your debt to income ratio. When it comes to you getting ready to make purchases such as a car or a house, you need to know how much car and house you can afford. And so when you think about your debt to income ratio, that's going to consist of what are my debts? Debts that I'm talking about here are minimum payments on loans, car, credit cards, rent, mortgage. We don't include our public utilities. That comes with BAU, living every day. Then you look at your income, your annual gross salary, bonuses over time, other income you may get from rental property, child support, and you divide this final number by 12 to get an average monthly income. When you take A and B, you're then going to come with your calculation, which allows you to look at your debts. Your monthly income will then give you your debt to income, which is your calculation. This is what banks look at to determine if they're going to loan you money to purchase a car, if they're going to loan you money to purchase a home. And I know, Maya, you just went through this because you're now a homeowner. Congratulations. You needed to make sure that you did not exceed what you could afford, because I don't want anybody on this phone to be house poor. And when I say house poor and car poor, that means that when you pay your house payment and your car payment, you poor. You ain't got no more money. So you house poor and you're not happy with that car or that house because you done spent all your money paying on your rent or on your loan. 36% or less is good. 37 to 42%, not bad. 43 to 49%, difficulties are coming. 50% or higher, you need to get help. So it is very important for you to understand your debt to income ratio. Credit bureau, very important. We get 3 credit bureaus free per year: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. I encourage you to get your free credit bureau every year. Do not get them all at the same time. What I mean by that is get your Experian first, give it another month, get your Equifax, give it another month, get your TransUnion. You can get them in any order. The reason that I'm spreading them out once or every 2 months is because you want to be able to see where you are throughout the year. So don't pull them all at the same time. Spread it out. Look at each of them. Most companies are using Experian and Equifax. I have found that companies are starting to rely upon TransUnion a lot more. But what I would say to you is that when you look at it, look at your range. Don't get to the point that you feel you're defeated because it's low. We can build that. And that's going to come from better habits of how you use money, how you view money, and how you use money to pay down debt. One of the other things I want you to know is make sure you pull your credit bureau. For those of you that have children, do not put the bills in your children's name because you got jacked up credit. Do not do that. Don't mess your child up before they even have an opportunity. Make sure that you are using credit smart. Make sure that you are not using it and abusing it. And so again, I'm gonna leave this with you. Use credit. Don't let credit use you. So, yes.
So there were a few questions in the chat.
Okay.
The first one is, should we invest in Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is something that we are still learning. I will tell you in the AML space, we are still looking at Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. We're also looking at where money is or is not going. Bitcoin can be an investment. I am not a financial advisor, so I cannot give that type of advice. What I would say is to really determine where, how, and when you should invest. Seek out a financial advisor. I know Brian Willis is very active within the Black Alumni chapter. He may be a resource. I think Steve is going to talk a little bit about investments, but my advice is seek out a financial advisor, sit down, tell them where you are financially, allow them to help you navigate where your money should go versus me saying you should or should not invest in Bitcoin.
And I'll leave the other questions for the Q&A, but I just wanted to say this last question since it's relevant to your information. Somebody asked, what's your professional opinion on free credit score apps such as Credit Karma?
I use Credit Karma. That is my personal opinion. I do like Credit Karma because it keeps me abreast of my score. The credit bureaus that you get free, you typically are just going to get the credit report. You may have to pay a little extra money in order to get the credit score. I will tell you there are companies such as American Express, Bank of America. We show you your FICO, RCI, they show you your FICO. It is very important for you to actually know what your Fair Isaac credit score is. That's what your FICO is. Credit Karma does a very good job by showing you Experian and TransUnion, letting you know if you go up or down. They also show you options for where you can go and perhaps get a loan so you can consolidate debt. So I am a user of Credit Karma, very familiar with it. I know that they typically show they send me an email like every week, your numbers went up, your numbers went down. So I would encourage you, Credit Karma, because it is free. I believe Experian now also has something similar. So if you want to take advantage of these free companies that will give you your FICO and share with you where you are, as well as you looking at your credit bureau, I absolutely encourage that. Thank you for the question, Kayla. So I wanted to call out a few things here just so that everybody can understand. Our past and present can dictate our future. I did not want you to think that it will. It can, but you've got to be diligent to make changes where you need to make changes. Credit score, we talked about that. Your ability to provide for your children. Start your children early with understanding what money is, the importance of money, how to use money, how to benefit from money, and how to not be one that loves money, because that is the root of all evil. Paying for college and preparing for college. There are so many of us that were not able to pay for college, so we had to take out student loans. I want us to be very smart about that. Maya started us off with some statistics about how much we owe in those loans. We got to be diligent and smart about that. Purchasing a home. Home can be deferred or denied. Financing a car. I want to be clear. Frenchie and Josh can have the exact same car, make, model, color, everything, music, all of that is wonderful. Because Frenchie handled her credit great, my interest rate could be a 2%, and I'm only having to pay $150 a month for my car. Josh, who decided that he was going to blow every credit card, use it to the hilt, he's going to have the exact same car, but his interest rate is going to be 8%. So Frenchie is out loving her car, rolling with her new whip, and I'm only paying $125 a month. Josh, he carpool because he did not do what he needed to do, but we have the exact same car. So please know, you can see, you can like, and you can want things, but if you are not responsible, you absolutely can get it, but you're going to have to pay the price because you haven't managed your money the way you should. It also is a representative of bankruptcy and foreclosure. A lot of us have heard of people doing this. We know with COVID, there are some moratoriums out there so that people's homes are not foreclosed on. But once that moratorium is over, we got to get back to the basics, people. We got to be responsible with how we use our money. Is your dream deferred or denied? So you want to prepare and pay for college. To accomplish great things, we must not only act, but also dream. Not only plan, but also believe. So important for you to understand where you are as it is for preparing for college and paying for college. The way we spend and use our money will help us determine how much money we can afford, how much college we can afford, if we need to do work effort to go on to college, if we need scholarships, grants, or if there's just going to be simply, there's going to be a debt and I've got to be diligent in how I pay it back. Some of us are interested in purchasing a home or other types of real estate. Again, the interest rate is dictated by how you have managed your money. It is determined by what you do today may dictate what happens tomorrow. Don't feel that you got to go out there and your very first home is a 6-bedroom, 5-bath. Start small and work your way up. Realize that it may be only you that is living in that home for a period of time. And for those of you that are thinking about getting married, I absolutely encourage you to sit down with that soon-to-be husband or wife, pull your credit bureau, have a conversation, because when you are separate, y'all have your own separate debt. When you come together, you become one. And that means that the debt that he or she has becomes your debt as well. And especially when it comes time for you to get ready to purchase a home, if you didn't know where they were financially, that dream will be deferred or denied. Starting your own business. We're going to hear from an entrepreneur when we have our panel discussion. It is so important for you to make sure that when your money's acting funny and your change is acting strange, that you can figure out how you can get back on track, because that can dictate if you get a loan and how much that interest rate is. We know we have the Small Business Administration that also helps with business owners, but we realize that there are times that people who may look like us, brown and Black people, our interest rate may be higher for whatever reason. We've got to be prepared to negotiate, have a conversation, stand on your morals with integrity, and allow people to understand that the business that we want to pursue, it is not worth you charging me an arm, a leg, and 4 toes when you know that I qualify to get a lower interest rate. But again, all of this is going to be dictated by how you have managed your money. So as you prepare for retirement and traveling the world, please know when your company has a 401k or if your company has a pension, take advantage of those. Get involved in those. If your company matches, meaning Frenchie is putting in up to 6%, my company said I will match 5% of what Frenchie puts in, then take advantage of that. If your company is willing to match, at least put in as much as they're willing to match, because that's free money. When it comes time for you to prepare for retirement, you need to know when you can retire, how much money it's going to take for you to live the lifestyle that you become accustomed to. So if you're burning every penny that you get on the front end, it's going to be that much harder for you to make it up on the back end. So when you're in the 3rd and 4th quarter of your life and you no longer have that 1st and 2nd quarter to get it right, it's a lot harder for you to make traction so that you have money that you can retire comfortably. But as my husband says, live within your means. Don't count anybody else's pocketbook. Remember, I don't need you to keep up with the Joneses, the Browns, and the Adams. I need you to know how much money you have and how much you're willing to invest so that you can properly prepare for retirement and travel the world. And what you're starting to see is that more people are having to work much longer than retirement age because they've gone through their savings. They don't have the funding available because life happens. Great trees grow from the smallest shoots, and a journey of 1,000 miles begins by taking the initial step. So when you think about stewardship in action, be a blessing to others. This allows you to get blessed. Don't live to make money to live. Set realistic goals and stick to them. Teach your family members how to save. Don't live beyond your means. I keep saying it. Don't worry about the Jones, the Browns, and the Adams. And with Bank of America, we have better money habits. And I want for you to take advantage of being able to utilize that information. I'm going to show it to you shortly. But the last quote that I would give you here for Proverbs is, do not withhold good from those who it is due when it is on the power of your hand to do so. Do not say to your neighbor, go, come back, and tomorrow I will give it when you have it with you. This means be a blessing to others, and you will see how you're going to be blessed 100-fold. So in my closing remarks, I would say to you, how many of you are ready, based on what you have heard, to go from poverty to prosperity, from borrower to lender, from desperate to determined, from powerless to powerful, from lacking to more than enough, from government assisted to self-reliant, to controlled to in control, from desperate to determined, from bad credit to credit worthy. And so I hope you take all of this and realize there are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. So the acronym I would leave you with is M, manage, take responsibility. O, options, choose wisely. N, necessary, needs versus wants. E, extra, save for the future. Y, yield, produce good fruits. And Kayla, if I could, before I transition here, give me one moment. Can everyone see my screen? You should be seeing Bank of America. I will make sure that you get the deck that I just went through. But with Bank of America, we have better money habits. Everything that I just went through, I want for you to know that you have access to this information as well. And if you go to our Better Money Habits, it will talk about credit, debit, saving, home ownership, retirement, college, anything that you have a question about. So I encourage you to take advantage and utilize this information. And with that, I will yield the floor to Kayla.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brown, for sharing that important information. My name is Kayla Williams. I'm a junior biology major with minors in chemistry and sociology. I'm actively involved on campus as a student ambassador, and I also serve as the community outreach chair for the UNC Charlotte chapter of the National Council of Negro Women, and I'm the upcoming volunteer coordinator for the Minority Association of Pre-Medical Students. Myself, I'm very passionate about serving the campus and the community, and I'm always eager to find ways to do so. I really believe in connecting with alumni and leaders like in this event to gain knowledge on meaningful topics that is beneficial to so many of us. As a pre-med student working towards becoming a plastic surgeon, and I'm not scrolling on hundreds of research papers, I'm probably working on a business endeavor. So this seminar is very helpful for me in that aspect too. As a college student with an overwhelming schedule that leaves little time to enhance my financial literacy beyond online articles, hearing firsthand experience about debt management and budgeting will allow me to better allot my money to allow for bigger rendering investments that will accumulate wealth for my children's children. So I'm grateful to my organization, the Student Ambassador Program, for this opportunity to be here and connect with alumni, distinguished leaders in the community on financial wisdom. We are about to transition into the panel portion of the event where alumni will share their debt and finance journeys. As they share, we encourage you to drop your questions in the chat or consider connecting after the event. Now I'd like to welcome Steve Long, UNCC class of 1991, Raven Johnson, class of 2015, and Brad Yeckley, Assistant Director for Financial Literacy at UNC Charlotte, to introduce themselves and briefly share their stories.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, so following Frenchie is never fun because, you know, Frenchie just really lays it down, but I should be used to it by now. Frenchie and I were in school together. We actually were student alumni ambassadors together back in the day. So we have interacted a lot and had to follow each other through many clubs. I don't even know how many clubs we were in together, Frenchie. So many, it seems like, together. what I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about my view on finance and investment. And this is by no way going to cover everything, because one of the things I want to point out is that when it comes to your path, when it comes to your financial goals and the way that you're going to accomplish them, you have to make sure you lay out what you are comfortable with and what you're willing to do. And what I mean is this. So when I started off and finished up at UNC Charlotte, I was poor. I came out of UNC Charlotte with a political science degree, had no idea what I wanted to do with it. The only reason I picked political science because in the beginning I was going to do law school, learned about the legal profession, decided it wasn't for me. So, got a job making less than what I'd have been making at Wendy's with a 4-year degree. So I felt real proud of myself for that. But I had goals and I knew I needed to do a few things in my life to get to where I wanted to be. So I sat down and took a hard look at where do I want to go? Where am I at right now? And what steps would it take? Well, entrepreneurship is a great thing, and Raven will talk about that more, but it wasn't in my blood. I knew I had no desire to be an entrepreneur. Some people will look at you and say that you're crazy for not wanting to be, but it's not for everybody. Just know if you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to own your own business, you're taking that business with you to bed every night, because you're not only responsible for you, but for your employees. I wasn't really ready for that type of risk and responsibility, but I did want to work hard and get to where I wanted to be. So I was fortunate, found a position with a company and wound up being able to use my background. I had a lot of skills in computer science, even though I was a poli-sci major, and got into the IT field. And I've been in that since the 90s. I'm an IT program manager. So I use it to my advantage. So what I'm saying to you all is that for the ones of you who are still in college or new graduates, look at where you are and what your next steps will be and what's comfortable to you. Where do you see yourself growing? How you want to make your plan. You may not be able to base it off of one of your friends, of what they're doing, because they have different goals and they may have a different skill set. Some of my real good friends coming out of high school, they work for NASA now. I didn't have that engineering background. So I wasn't going to be able to make it the same way they did. I had to look at what I could realistically do. And the IT field was it for me. When you do have your plan together, make sure you look at things. Don't overcomplicate investment. And what I want you to think about is that sometimes there are low-hanging fruit. One of the things that Frenchie talked about was with 401ks. So if you are able to get on with a decent company that has a 401k plan, one of the first things you want to do is find out what kind of a matching program they have. And you want to make sure you maximize that. That way you don't see that money come out. So if they're if they're match 1-for-1 for the first 3% or 6%, make sure you put that in there. That way you're not leaving any money on the table. Get into a good investment plan with them. They'll have different kinds that you can options where it either be based off the S&P 500, which means the top earning companies. They're more stable. They won't have some of the risk. They may not have real high returns like where you hear about companies having, 400% return in one quarter, but they have a nice consistent return. You put that money in there. Don't go check it every week. It'll drive you crazy if you do. Check it once a quarter at most. Let that money sit. And what happened is with compounded interest, especially if you started early on, before you know it, you've gotten pretty good money in there. And then that's money that's yours. You can't go take 100% of it out because you will pay a penalty on it in taxes, but you can use that money to your advantage. You can take 401k money, use it to buy a rental property without paying a penalty of it, because now it's a self-directed investment, as long as you don't go stay in that property, and you're making yourself money off of that now. So there are different options. You want to make sure, if you are going to work for a company, they may have a stock plan to where I work for companies where we got employee stock and they paid us in that way. I didn't rush to go cash that stock option out a lot of times because I realized that the company was still growing. I would hold on to that stock and see how much more it would grow. Then later on, maybe sell it. One company I was with, the stock grew pretty good. I got ready to leave that company and wound up, I had a really good nest egg to prepare me for the next position I went for. And it was just perfect timing. My wife was about to have our first child, so she wasn't working. And we didn't miss a beat because I was able to use that stock money to supplement income. And even I think we made actually more money that year than I had the year before because of money I had invested in that previous company by the time I left. So the other thing too is that if they have a life insurance plan, you want to invest in that because a lot of times you will be able to buy life insurance through your company a lot cheaper than you will anywhere else. Right now with my company, my life insurance plan I have, I don't pay it much at all per paycheck on it. It's not even enough really for me to even look at. But it'll pay, if something happens to me, it'll pay more than 6 times my annual income. So it will more than pay out our existing debt without me having to go buy an expensive policy. But like I said, these are low-hanging fruit options here that you would look for. So sometimes when you're looking at a job offer, you're looking at more than just what the straight salary is. What are some of the benefits? Even in health and medical. My oldest child, before she turned a year, had meningitis. That hospital bill was a couple of $100,000. I think I might have paid $30, and that was it. A lot of people that are homeless now are because of medical bills. So you want to look at that full package. Another point that I was making notes when Frenchie was talking because she was hitting a lot of good points. One thing too, as far as I saw a question come up on diversification and what we thought of that with investment. Diversification is huge. So let's say right now you're wanting to get into the investments. You're wanting to either get into stocks. Personally, what I look at is I'm not going to put everything in the one type of industry, because if that industry bombs out, what happens to you? You know, everything you had was empowering industry. You were thinking, you know, Duke Energy, Southern Energy, all these energy companies were great, which most of the time they are. But then you have an issue like you just had this summer with Texas with the power grid failing. All your investments are pretty much trashed in one shot right there. And it was out of your control. Bill Gates is, you know, wealthy beyond measure. Less than 30% of his investments were in technology. Less than 30%. And he's sitting on top of Microsoft, a technology firm. So what does that tell you about diversification? If somebody like him doesn't put all their money in one sector, there's a reason for it. And there's a reason why his wealth keeps growing. He's diversified across different industries. Does anybody have any questions on that? Or does that make sense? Another important thing is like with my investments now, I have some through technology, I have some through the S&P 500, but also I do investments through real estate. So my family owns a bunch of land. We own about 800 acres, and we rent that land out. We rent out to hunters, we rent out to other farmers. It was farming land. The original land came from the plantation that my grandfather's grandfather was a slave on, and we were able to buy it over the years. So we were able as a family to pool money and buy that real estate. So we won't let that go. My next investment goal is, me and my wife right now, even today, actually, we were talking, and we're looking at buying some vacation rental properties to be able to rent out. And with rental properties, that's passive income. While you're asleep, your money's still making money. I'm not having to go out to do anything. You won't see me in front of food lines selling oranges. You know, it is making its own money. It's always going to have equity. They're not making any more land. So when you have it, you have it. So not saying it's for everybody, but real estate has been good for me. So one of the best ways to find out what is good for you as far as, about running time real quick. One of the good things that's good for you to find out about real estate, about any kind of investments, is research. Make sure you research everything you want to do. If you don't have time to research it, you don't have time to invest in it. Go on the internet, ask people, talk to people that are currently doing it. If I know that Charles Kirby already has a lot of investments within a technology firm, I'm going to talk to him about it and ask him what his experiences are. If you do the research, you will buy at a better price and you will be able to manage it a lot better. And it's all kinds of purchases. Something as simple as when I purchased a truck that I drive now, I did the research. So I knew at what time to buy it. Because I bought during truck month, because I bought during the end of the month and the end of the quarter, I saved $10,000 on that truck, 10 grand. Who wants to throw away $10,000? But I did the research instead of just going running off and doing it. And then just make sure, like, for the next generation, are you prepping your kids, your nieces and nephews to learn about investments? One of the things that we would always do when our kids were little, we would go on vacations. I would always make my daughters go with me when I went to go check out the hotel. And before I would pay it off, I'd have them to go through the receipt and look at the hotel bill. And I'd be like, how much was that? And they would look at the cost of how much that trip just cost us. We would go out to dinner. I would show them the bill. I'm like, okay, so how much was this? We went out to a restaurant. How much did all this cost? And they were able to start putting them some kind of a value on that. And I'm saying, okay, so what do you need to do where you can do this when you get older, when you get on your own, when you can go on vacations or you want to go out to eat? How are you going to make sacrifices to be able to do this? Does that mean you go to the mall and buy every little toy you want? Or are you going to save money and make this a goal or something you want to do? And believe it or not, they will see that and they will value that. Don't try to hide finances from them. I even show them exactly, here's how much daddy makes a year. Here's how much mommy makes a year. Here's how much money we spend on different things. So when my oldest is in college now, she's able to quantify, she has her own budget now of showing everything she makes and everything she spends and how much college costs that we're paying for. So it's not like it's just this fake thing out in the middle of nowhere, and she knows what she needs to do. So there's a couple of more things I want to hit, but I want to turn over to Raven because I know I've ran over time, and I apologize. I know we were running up to the end. So, but just make sure you're teaching the next generation and you have your own financial goals, and I'll be here for questions. So go ahead, Raven.
Hey everyone. First, thank y'all so much for sticking around. We know that we are going to be a little bit over time, so if you can stay, great. If not, we will have this recorded. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Raven Johnson. I am class of 2015 at UNC Charlotte. Happy to be here with you all. So first, I just wanted to talk about just an overview of. I have a long story, but what overview is I was super involved in undergrad, very into everything, had all kinds of jobs, everything like that. But I just felt the need to take out a bunch of credit cards and open a bunch of credit cards, like JCPenney because I work there, everything that someone offered me. That's my first. Please don't do that, y'all. Like if you are an undergrad and you're on this call, first and foremost, please don't do that. It's a setup. It's a trap. All right, now. So again, I'm Raven, and so when I was in undergrad, accumulated that debt. Then, unlike Steve, I did not graduate college and go to the workforce. I actually graduated and went straight to graduate school that fall. I went to University of South Florida in Tampa, Florida, in which I opened more cards and accumulated more debt and took out way more student loans. I was in grad school and I didn't pay a dime in tuition. I had a graduate assistantship that paid for my entire 2 years of graduate school, but I still felt the need to take out, think about, I took out like $50,000 in loans that were offered. Any loan that was offered, I took it. And that was a huge mistake as well, because I didn't have much debt leaving undergrad, maybe like 20,000 or so. My dad kind of took care of the rest. When I got to grad school, I would not have had debt if I just kind of just was more responsible, maybe picked up another side hustle, things like that, and didn't take out those loans. But in undergrad, I didn't really get refund checks like my friends did. So I was really excited to take out those loans. So definitely Definitely don't recommend taking out those extra loans that are offered to you in graduate school because you're there for free. You get paid with your assistantship, make it work, budget. Looking back, I could have lived off of my monthly stipend from my job. I did not need those extra loans. I just kind of wanted them. And yeah, of course, they helped me pay rent and do a few things I wanted to do, travel to see my boyfriend at the time. But looking back, it was not necessary. So definitely keep that in mind. Yes, Freddie and Maya will know. Yes, but yes, damn. So total, like, we'll know about that grad school life. We all went to grad school in student affairs, higher education programs, and they pay for you to go if you work in their offices. So anyway, yeah, so I left grad school with about $87,000 in student loan debt from both graduate school, which I took out the most, and it was only 2 years, and then those 4 years of undergrad. I don't know who's paying back those loans, so hopefully they figure it out. Just kidding, y'all. I'll come with a plan soon. But after, right, exactly, Freddie, it's above me now too. So yeah, when I left my graduate from grad school, I did not have a job immediately. So I was pretty broke. Well, broke is a mindset, as Frenchie said. But so I went back to Charlotte for a few months, and then I worked for my mentor for about a few months before I got a job in December of that year. I'll be transparent with y'all. Higher education, student affairs division does not pay a lot. My first job out of grad school paid about $37,000. My checks were about $1,000 every 2 weeks. Luckily, I live in a small rural town. It was kind of okay at the time, but the reason I started my business, Pour Up Atlanta, is because I wasn't making enough money and I had needs and wants and things I wanted to do. So I started my business, which is Pour Up Atlanta, because I wanted extra income. And after, I spent undergrad and college bartending and graduate school bartending, working in I worked in really fast-paced nightclubs. And in grad school, I worked for services just like mine, some freelance bartending on the side. But when I got my full-time job, I decided to start my business because I wanted a side hustle. My business was never supposed to grow beyond me just taking a few bartending gigs here and there. So fast forward about a year and a half. Yes, Genoa. Hey, girl. Yes. So we do not get paid a lot in higher education, but I'm very, very, very passionate about student affairs, student development, all of that stuff. So when I lost my job in September of 2019, I was terminated from my position for various reasons that if you want to ask me my story, feel free to give me a call after this. But a long story short, just some, I had an older boss. He was like 60 years old, white male, been there 35 years, didn't really like the young, Black, motivated, all that stuff. Still trying to fight for, about what happened. It was a very unfortunate situation that I should not have been fired for. A lot of lies and things going on. But anyway, that's a long story. I'm still healing from that wound, actually. But I was I lost all income immediately and was kind of forced to grow my business, even though I didn't plan to. Because bartending, believe it or not, is not my passion. Student development is, leadership development is. It's a secondary passion. This is like a very important for me to be a multi-passionate entrepreneur, because I make it very, very clear that although I own this business, Pour Up Atlanta, about mixology and bartending, I'm very passionate about student development and higher education. And so from there, I kind of had to force myself into growing the business more. And it was very, very slow because all the income that I was bringing in, I had to put right back out to bills. And when you're starting a business, for anyone that wants to, when you're making money and you're first starting out, you should not spend that money. It's not really yours yet, it's the company's. So keep that in mind, that when I had to pivot, I had to just use all my money for that. And so I hit rock bottom during that point, very, very hard, difficult situation. It took me a while to kind of get out of that. And then once I put my head down and started really putting in the work, I saw my business grow and I saw more money coming in, and I had to develop a financial plan. And so I also graduated grad school with about $20,000 in credit card debt. And so like November of last year, December is when I started to do a little bit better. I had to make a plan to figure this out. And so I hired a financial coach. Her name is Aaliyah. Her company is called House of A Financial. And I will add the link to her website in case anyone wants to reach out to her. She's very affordable. And she pretty much targets her audience to Black women. But she's a financial coach that really helped me get right back on track. Since then, I only have about $6,000 in credit card debt left from 20,000. So I'm very, very proud of myself for that. I was not saving. I did not have a savings account. And so I just decided I needed to start a savings account. You don't really, even though I was broke, I was like, I have to save all that stuff. And so when you have a regular income, like I do in a small business and working for myself, it's very hard for me to determine how much I'm making. I make different amounts every week. I could make $50, I could make $3,000. And so for me, it was important for me to get a financial coach and really build out a budget that works for me. Based on, there's different ways to budget if you have a small business. And so for me, my savings is extremely important. I want to buy a house soon. I want to make sure I have my emergency fund stocked up. And so for me, what I'm doing is sending 10% of any income I make to my savings account. So the week before last, I think I brought in $300. I sent $30. Last week, I brought in, like, transparency, about $2,200. And so I put $220 into my savings account. It depends on the week. It's never the same. A few weeks ago, I made $0. So it really depends. And then that's also scary for me as a small business entrepreneur because I don't have a set income. So currently I am looking for side hustles and different things to get back into higher education. I would even work full time and all of that. So I can gain more consistency because that anxiety you get with not knowing how much money you're gonna bring in is very real if you don't have a biweekly paycheck. So that is a goal of mine. So again, 10%, I send the savings each week, doesn't matter what. And then for my budget, I just started really getting a handle on budgeting at 27. So that's really great. But there's a few key categories for me. Our household, which includes rent, utilities, phones, healthcare, dental, and house needs. As small business entrepreneurs, I have to get my own health insurance. And so if you're in COVID, there's actually, the premiums are very, very low right now. So I was able to get that. Transportation, your car note, your car insurance, gas maintenance. I really messed up last year with my car because, again, I sunk into a deep depression. And so I got in a really bad car accident just because I was depressed. So there's that. So that includes the note and maintenance and gas. Then I have a debt payoff category. So that lists all of my debts and my monthly and how much I plan to pay that month. And I pre-plan how much I'm going to pay that month based on how much money I have left over from the previous month to spend. So if I have $2,000 left over or even $500, I'm putting all of that to my debt because my goal right now is to pay off my debt. Leisure, so that includes your shopping, eating out, all that. I use cash envelopes for that now because I'm pretty ridiculous with eating out. I have amazing, beautiful sisters. Some of them are in this chat right now, and we like to eat out. So I intentionally set up the cash envelope in order to keep up with my budget. Leisure also includes, I have it pulled up, my Netflix, Amazon Prime, all that stuff. If you don't need Netflix, Amazon Prime, please take it out, y'all. It does add up over time. I found out I had an Audible subscription the other day, and I've been paying on it for 11 months. And I was like, what? So I canceled that, and they actually reimbursed me. So fun fact, if you have Audible and everything, all that stuff, call them and get your money back. Entertainment, all that, nail, skin, and hair. I cut that in half from previous lifetimes because my daddy owns a hair salon. I can do my own hair. I've always known how to do my hair. So some things that you all have skills in, or that you can kind of find ways to cut back on costs, ordering a nail kit on Amazon, all of that, do it, because you need to save money and keep it in the bank. And then my last category for my finances is Port Atlanta. Port Atlanta has a lot of expenses every month. We have my Dubsado, which is my CRM, client management system. I have virtual assistant. I have Canva. I have G Suite, my website domain, my email, and my unit costs for events and things I have to do, processing fees for payments, brand shoot, photography. It really is a lot of money that comes out from that too. So just finding a way to organize that has been really, really key for me. Let me see. Yeah. So overall, y'all, please budget and save your money so you don't end up like I was. And honestly, in full transparency, I'm just coming up from below the water. So there isn't like, it's like, I think you can look on social media and make assumptions about how people are doing or what they're going through, but you really don't know, because I was at my lowest point in 2019 and the beginning of 2021. So it was making a lot of really dumb decisions and being really just sporadic in my spending and how I did things, and just didn't really care. So, and with that, I also think about this idea of post-grad depression that we don't talk about a lot. When you graduate, when you're in school, you have all these friends, you have all these clubs, all this stuff, you're like amazing, you're doing all these cool things. And then you graduate from undergrad and grad school and like everything's just gone, and you're gonna have to start from scratch. That adds in the financial depression, right? So all of that mixed up just gets a huge and anxiety and mental health decrease. So take care of yourself. Have a plan for when you graduate, have a plan for if you don't have a job, and stick to it and just be disciplined. It takes a lot to be disciplined, but I believe in all of you. So yeah, I would like to thank all of y'all for listening in. And I don't know, next portion, I think is questions. Yeah, Nia, having kids, etc. Yeah, so thank y'all all so much for listening to me. I hope I was informed, have some good information for y'all. Again, I'm still coming up from water. I still have a long journey to go. I want to get serious about investing and all that stuff. I need to know how I can buy a house with a business that hasn't been profitable for 2 years, for 2 whole years. Maybe Frenchie can help me with that. But yeah, I will take up questions, and I invite the BAC board to also chime in on questions that the audience has as well.
Yeah, so there's some questions in the chat, and I think that we plan to stay on a little bit longer to answer those. But now Brad Yuckley, who is the Assistant Director for Financial Literacy at UNC Charlotte, is going to speak a little bit more about what he does.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll be quick so that we can get to questions. So I've recently been hired as the Assistant Director for Financial Literacy and Wellbeing here at UNC Charlotte. I came from Penn State University, where I spent the last previous 7.5 years building a robust financial literacy and wellbeing program there. I have a bachelor's degree in counseling, an MBA in corporate finance, and a PhD in workforce education, with my focus on financial literacy program development and delivery. So I'm really excited to be in front of all of you and to be with the students at Charlotte, because the university has decided to dive in headfirst into increasing student financial literacy capability and well-being around a variety of programming and resources that are geared towards not only undergraduate students, but also graduate students, faculty, staff, and alumni. So a lot of the things I'm hearing in here, I was frantically taking notes during the chat. I just kind of stopped and said, I'll make a blanket statement. A lot of the questions that you all are having, we are a free resource. So you can reach out through my website to make an appointment or to talk about some of the things that you're talking about, because it's vitally important to, as Raven pointed out, like to make some of these decisions early. And so I really want to share 2 pieces of actual very specific advice and then some generalized advice. As I was looking through the chat, there was a lot of pieces of advice going back and forth. we have to remember that our financial capability and well-being boils down to decision-making, and decision-making boils down to your lived experiences and your individual habits and behaviors. So there was a lot of great information flying back and forth in that chat, but that's not great information for everybody. So you really need to find people that are living the values that you want to live, that have the lived experiences that you've been living. We call them more knowledgeable others or financial influencers that you trust and admire that to get that information from. I like to think that I'm a trusted, unbiased resource, right? Some bank hasn't given me $10 million yet to push their products, so I'm not going to do that. But just remember that you can't discount somebody's lived experiences and the individual aspects of financial security, financial health, and then financial well-being. Generalized advice is good. So I heard in here, save 10% of everything you ever make, pay yourself first. You are your own most important creditor, right? That is absolutely good general advice. But when it comes down to, I saw a question, should I buy a rental property versus a home? That is a very individualized question. Do you have children? If you have children, I'm probably going to tell you buy a home, right? So there's all kinds of things that go into this that you need to talk to somebody else. The two pieces of specific advice that I want to point out right now around credit score, I encourage everyone to sign up for what is called Experian Boost. If you don't have a long-standing established credit history, either revolving or installment credit, but you've been maintaining a savings account and paying utility bills or like your phone bill for a number of years, you can get a boost to your credit score because of those financial factors. That is a new feature in 2019. The IRS changed some of the laws around credit reporting agencies. You are now allowed to get credit for those types of things. So I encourage everybody to sign up for Boost. I myself signed up for it. I think my credit score went up like 6 points or something, not very much, but I've worked with some younger individuals who've seen their credit scores increase 20 or 25 points by signing up for Experian Boost. That's the difference between a 0% interest loan on a car and a 3.5% interest loan on a car. So if you're thinking about that in terms of dollars, you buy a $50,000 car, that's $9 grand in your pocket because you went and signed up for this free service. The second thing that I want to point out, we did discuss getting your full credit report from freeannualcreditreport.com. For the rest of 2021, you can print out a free report every week if you wish. Now, do you need to be checking your free credit report every week? Probably not, but you don't have to worry about spreading them out over 2021. However, if you're thinking about making a major purchase this year, it's probably going to be beneficial for you to print out that credit report a number of times before you actually sign on the dotted line. I've seen the questions that we had prior to this, so I know there's a lot and I don't want to take up a lot of time, but you can get in touch with my offices, my resources, and my services through ninerfinances.uncc.edu or manageyourmoney.uncc.edu. That'll take you out to our page. There's a ton of resources and information there, but also there's a little green box on every page that you can click to schedule a discussion or an appointment with me to go over anything that we're talking about today. So I think we'll get to the questions now. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, so we had a lot of questions in the chat, but I'm just gonna generally talk about each subject. So I'm gonna ask questions to the panelists. And the first question is, would you recommend a person staying in a position for 5 years to receive a pension? And there was also another question that asks, I currently have a position with my old job with a pension. Would it make sense to transfer those funds to a Roth IRA? If so, would that result in having to give up 20%?
This is Frenchie. I'm, again, not a financial advisor. I want to speak to the timing that you said for staying in your position for 5 years. I'm going to go back to, I advise you to find a financial advisor or financial coach to really help you determine what you should do as it pertains to pensions. There are some companies that no longer have a pension, but this is what I would say about the 5 years. I typically encourage my mentors and peer coaches that when you're in a role, stay in that role for 12 to 18 months. And that is so that you can master and understand the role that you're in before you transition to a new role. A lot of us have been tapped. Tapped is when they say, Frenchie, we want for you to move to a new role because you are a great performer in the role that you're in. So what I'm going to say to the overall question is, don't pigeonhole yourself in a role because of a pension. Allow yourself to grow and develop and build your arsenal with other skills, and the money will come. Just because you move from one role to the next doesn't mean that if you go from one company to the next company that you cannot take that money, that pension, and roll it over to the next company. So don't let the money dictate how long you stay in a role to learn a skill set.
And I just want to echo what she's saying on staying in a role. Make sure the reason you're staying in that role is to benefit you. Because like right now, currently, the role I'm in, I made a decision to stay in this role for another 2 to 3 years. And the reason I'm going to stay in my role right now is that one, I've mastered, I know what I can do it in my sleep. But the other thing is that I am about to start back taking classes in the fall. I'm gonna start back finally working on my PhD. So I don't want to take on a new role while I'm doing that, because that's going to be challenging enough. If I didn't see any other kind of growth, then yes, I would be looking at another role for growth. So just make sure you're doing what's best for your current situation, and to Frenchie's point. And you will know that better than anybody else. But it goes back to doing the research, and that's what I'm gonna keep sending you back to. Do the research, talk to other people to find, don't go at work telling everybody all your business, but talk to people you trust. Are there anybody in your inner circle that you can just say, hey, here's something I'm looking at doing, and I know you have experience or you've done this before. What advice would you have?
Sure. And can I just add something about pensions? In my time working in higher education, where typically a pension is offered and a defined contribution plan is offered, and you have a young entry-level employees starting that accidentally choose the pension plan and then leave before the vesting period is over, that's a huge mistake. So I've worked with staff members before who, let's say that like the vesting period at Penn State was 7 years. At year 6.5, they would come to me thinking about leaving or thinking about changing roles or changing employers. My advice at that point would always be to stick it out 6 more months so that you're vested and that you can get the contributions that the university or the state made on your behalf. So there's a lot that goes into those types of decisions. And that's why it really you have to talk to somebody that knows what they're doing and that knows that pension plan in particular. Pensions generally have some of the same caveats, but they have a lot of differences that need to be taken into account before you potentially leave a position and cost yourself significant amounts of money.
Great responses. The next question, it says, what are some ways to build your credit without having a credit card? Like, how do you get credit for paying your rent? Or if you have limited funds, but you want to invest, how do you do that?
Sure, I'll go. There are a couple of organizations that will allow you, so you typically can't get credit for paying your rent unless your landlord is reporting to the credit reporting agencies, and they usually don't do that. There are some third-party agencies that if you want to try to build credit without having to get credit cards out, that will do it for you. So, but you're going to be charged a fee for that. Some of the fees I've seen are pretty significant, like a 4% fee, and then you pay your rent to this organization, and then they pay through a credit reporting agency on your behalf. Some other ways, though, if you don't want to use credit cards, so credit card is revolving credit, there's installment credit. So if you've had a student loan and you're making timely payments on your student loan, you're building credit there. If you've taken out a car loan, you can build credit there. Here in Charlotte, I think there's a couple organizations that if you have pretty poor credit and not a lot of financial resources, that you can contact them and they will set up accounts for you to take out small installment loans that you then pay back. You use the money for what you need, you pay back the loan to the organization, and they report that to the credit reporting agencies to help build your credit over time.
And Brad, thank you for that. I also would say there's some couple other options out there for you. A secured card. A secured card is when you take your own money. Remember, I talked about the savings account. You take your own money, you go to a financial institution, you tell them, I want to give you $300 to put on a secured card, not a prepaid card, but a secured card. And that is your money. They may ask you for a little additional money. Like, for instance, you can say, I want to put $300 on a secured card. They may ask you to give $500, which is sort of like a buffer. You put that money on a card, and as you use that card, you pay it back monthly. That will build credit for you. It is a secured card where you're building. Another option is if your mother or father have a credit card and they make you an authorized user on their credit card. That builds credit for you as well, because what's going to happen is, now make sure your mom and your daddy are paying their bills on time, because if they make you an authorized user and they're not paying, then guess what? That rolls down to you. But if you have a trusted family member that has a credit card, then they can also put you on there as an authorized user and you would benefit from that. The last one that I would say that I don't always encourage is to have someone to sort of co-sign for you on a car or something of that nature. That means that if you default, they're responsible, but it allows you to get whatever that item is. Someone has co-signed, and therefore you're building credit.
Thank you for touching on those subjects. So the next question, it wants to know whether paying off your credit cards early, or like someone, for instance, wanted to pay off their car early, but they heard it could lower their credit score. How can they stay out of debt and keep a high credit score?
No one wants to go, I'll go. So the two biggest determinants of your credit score are your payment history and the amount that you owe. That makes up 65% of what your credit score is. Your lines of credit and type of credit carry a much smaller weighted value. So by paying off your debt on those cards, taking a balance from $1,000 to $0 is always going to be beneficial to your credit score. Closing an account, no longer using that card and then closing that account, may have a negative impact on your credit score for a short period of time. But those types of accounts, that's only on there for a limited period of time, and it'll go away. All the bad stuff on your credit report eventually disappears. The good stuff stays on pretty much forever. Remember that. So if you're in some sort of trouble now and your credit score is a mess, we can always help to make it better. But if one of the determinants of your credit score is kind of the number of credit lines you have and the amount of or types of credit that you have. So it is good to have a good mix of credit, but especially when I work with young people, I tell them, look, I'm classifying myself as an old person now. I tell the youngsters that you will eventually over time accumulate these different types or lines of credit. There is no need early on in your professional career to go out and say, well, I need this type of card and this type of card and that type of card. And ooh, now I have 11 credit cards. I have a good credit history. Let those things happen naturally throughout your lives. So pay down your debt. You always want that debt number to be 0 if possible. And then the magic number is 30% utilization. So 30% or less to keep your credit score high. It will not negatively impact your score unless you actually close those cards out.
And what I would also add to that is make sure that if your company that you're using a credit card with is sending you notification that because you haven't used your card, they're going to close your card, go use the card. And this is what advice that I would give you. When I say go use the card, go put some gas on the card, pay the gas off the next month, because companies are starting to realize that utilization, people aren't using their cards as much. So companies are starting to just shut them down and let you know if you don't use it. So what I would say is if you get that letter, take that card that has a 0 balance, go buy McDonald's burger, fries, and drink, put it on the card. And that just shows, okay, I am using this card, and then just pay it in full. And if you do start using a card again that has a 0 balance, make sure that you're not putting more on the card than you can pay off in full every month. If you have an opportunity to do a consolidation with cards. And what I mean by that is a lot of you are going to start hearing about balance transfers. You can transfer all your money to a card for X amount of fee, and therefore you have X amount of months with 0% interest. I'm not going to say that that is always a good thing. Do your homework. Be diligent. There are some that allow you to do a transfer with no fee, but you got to be diligent to say, hey, if you're going to give me 10 months to pay it off without accruing interest by doing a transfer, I will discipline myself to do that. So just be smart when you're using your credit card. And Brad, I think you wanted to jump in there.
Oh, I always want to jump in. Balance transfers are beneficial when you have to do them. My stance and my research shows that underlying behaviors need to be looked at and adjusted. So a balance transfer is potentially a Band-Aid on bad financial behavior that will buy you 10 months of time. But if you haven't changed your behaviors or done some introspection or developed a plan on what's going to happen at 10 months, you're going to be doing the same thing over again. So just transferring that balance will give you momentary relief. You will feel good for a week or two, but a few months down the road, if you haven't changed behavior in any capacity or looked at your habits or the way you're acting with money, you will be right back in the same financial situation. So be careful about that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So next, what is the best way to prepare for retirement for someone who is close to retirement age and also for someone who is single?
Stay single.
Well, I know so when you're you're getting close to that retirement age, and then other people can chime in as well. I know everybody has a little bit of a different thought. First, make sure you know really where you are financially, what outstanding bills you still have, and what it really will take for you month to month to survive comfortably, not just to barely get over. And at that point, you'll see what you need to do in retirement, whether you have enough built up in your 401k with Social Security and everything else to make ends meet to live, or do you need to do something else? Because I know quite a few people that have retired and they've gone to a plan B and they're doing something else. You want to make sure that, you know, financially you're healthy, but also that you do have something you are going to do to keep you mentally healthy as well. Retirement is not just about going and sitting up and not doing anything, because then your health will decline. So no matter how much money you have saved up, you will eat through that money through health expenses, if nothing else. So look and see where you are financially. Are there some things that you need to pay off first? I had a good friend that he delayed retirement for 6 months just to make sure he paid off a few things to get them out of the way that were interest-bearing accounts. And then at the point of retirement, everything was pretty much kind of laid out to where he could truly enjoy it and do the things that he wanted to do in retirement. So a lot of people here keep saying, go talk to a financial advisor. And it is a really good thing. That's part of your research. Don't make assumptions that's going to cost you money. Sometimes you can talk to people and it's not going to cost you a lot of money, and it'll wind up saving you a bunch in the end. Brad, I think you were going to jump in there.
It's great advice. I think people need to think about retirement a little differently. And traditionally, we just think about getting there, right? 65, whatever the number is. But retirement happens in 3 phases: the accumulation phase, the protection phase, and then the distribution phase. So once you get there, what does life look like for you? And the earlier you can start to plan that out, the better. So if you come to talk to me and you're 28 years old and you think retirement just seems like forever away, I'm going to talk to you about your current lifestyle today. Would you be happy living your lifestyle today in retirement? And if you say yes, we're going to project what that would cost 25 or 35 years down the road to give you a number. I just did a retirement webinar this morning that I gave some data on. My current living situation, I like the way my life goes. I'm going to need about $11,000 a month in retirement to live this lifestyle that I have right now today. So I need to look at what my retirement funds are going to potentially produce for me over time and see if those numbers match up. So retirement planning begins the first day you start your job, and looking at all 3 of those phases: accumulation, protection, and distribution.
All right, everyone. So I just want to say a special thank you. I know that we had kind of extended past our time, so I just want to shout out everyone who stayed on the line and listened to some additional gems that were shared. So special thank you to Brad, Raven, Steve, and Frenchie, and of course to Kayla for moderating the event, but to everyone for sharing about your personal experiences and then also just professional advice. It was just super, super helpful. So I hope that everyone got some important information out of this event. And we're just gonna ask that you continue to stay connected with the Black Alumni Chapter. We'll be coming out with additional events. And so you can make sure to stay connected with us via email, and then also via our Facebook page. It's the UNC Charlotte Black Alumni Chapter, I believe, but you can also Google us and get tons of information from the UNC Charlotte Black Alumni Chapter page. So yeah, with that, I just want to extend another thank you, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful night.